met up with Dr. Susan Bradford from Adelaide, Australia, who made a very interesting presentation on the kinetics of molecular recurrence in CML disease. Essentially what she found out is that patients who experience a very rapid increase in their BCR-ABL transcripts over a short period of time may actually not be taking their drugs, whereas patients who experience a very slowly progression of increase of BCR-ABL transcripts may actually be indicative of perhaps an emerging mutation that may be causing some resistance to the drug. So here's Sandra Shaw, Executive Committee member of the CML Society of Canada, speaking with Dr. Susan Bradford on this very interesting subject of the kinetics of molecular recurrence in CML.
Yes, so we have found that a lot of patients are non-adherent, more than perhaps we thought a number of years ago. And we now know that it's very important to identify these patients because their long-term response is poor. So we have noticed some relationships between the kinetics of loss of response that are characteristic between relapsing patients with true biological resistance. So it gives us some indication if it's a very rapid rise. We know that the BCR-ABL is doubling at a very short time frame, and this allows us to distinguish relapse into a more advanced disease compared to relapse into chronic phase. So we extended this study to see whether we would be able to use something similar to identify patients who are non-adherent, to see whether there were any differences in the kinetics of relapse. And our first observation was that patients who had discontinued imatinib in a discontinuation study relapsed with very rapid kinetics, rapid proliferation. And first of all, we thought, are these patients relapsing into a more advanced disease? But in fact, they were easily rescued with restart of imatinib. So we looked further and we found that this was characteristic of patients if they just stopped taking their drug, very rapid rise in BCR-ABL. So it's showing complete loss of kinase inhibition as soon as imatinib stops. And it is the same as what we were seeing with patients who relapse directly into blast crisis. So they're the group that we believe that we will be able to pick if they have stopped therapy. So they're the ones who maintain chronic phase but have this very rapid rise. They haven't gone into blast crisis, so a good pointer that they have stopped their therapy.
Okay. How quickly do you think this is going to translate out into the clinician community so that then they can take that and move forward with patient management?
Yes, well, it will first of all depend on when we can get this published. We've submitted for publication, that's always a long process and there's no guarantee that it's going to be accepted. So with the paper we are hoping, well, we have also prepared an Excel file where people can just plug in their dates of measurement interval, the BCR-ABL values, and there's automatic calculation of the doubling time. So we are trying to facilitate this into the clinic, and we've been approached by a group who wanted to look at this for their patients with acute lymphoblastic leukemia. These patients characteristically have a rapid rate of relapse, so they would like to immediately incorporate this into their patients to see whether there is any difference between relapse among this acute group of patients.
And for patients to understand this, is it going to have, is there going to be educational value for physicians to discuss this, or how will the patients be able to integrate this?
Yes, perhaps it's something that the clinicians will be able to discuss with their patients. I mean, I think there's something that it is discussed, is the importance of taking your drug. And, now perhaps they can say, well, we'll be able to see, we'll be able to have some hint if you're not taking your drug, and we test you often enough, we may be able to find that they are not taking the drug. These are the ones that don't confess to take it.
Okay. Will it have an impact on issues like adherence that are related to side effects or tolerability?
Probably not. I think there's a separate issue. I mean, these are things that cannot be avoided. There are times when patients have to stop therapy, particularly early into their therapy, when there are perhaps more side effects at that stage. Yes, and that is just a fact of life that these patients have to stop.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Dr. Susan Brnaford, for that very interesting interview. We're looking forward to seeing your work being published in the very near future. And thank you, our viewers, for joining us for this special report from ASH.